The girl who replaced her 60-year-old uncle as a driver accidentally met a millionaire CEO and changed her life forever. "Jade, I'm begging you," came the frail voice on the other end of the line, laced with desperation. "I can't lose my license or my job. I've got nothing else." 19-year-old Jade Carson took a shaky breath phone pressed tight against her ear. It was close to midnight in her cramped studio apartment, the single overhead bulb flickering ominously. An overdue stack of bills lay scattered on the rickety coffee table, a glaring reminder of her own precarious finances. "Uncle Tom," she said, wrestling to keep her voice steady. "We'll figure something out. You're not going to lose everything." A ragged cough crackled through the phone. Tom Carson, at 60, had spent the better part of his life driving a taxi through the bustling streets of Westbridge City. He'd taken Jade in after her parents passed away, raising her with more love than resources. Now he was out of commission with a severe back injury, a pile of medical bills, and a looming threat from the taxi company. If he didn't return soon, they'd pull his medallion and give his taxi license to someone else. "It's my fault for pushing my back too far." Uncle Tom sighed painfully. "But the doctor says I can't drive for at least a few weeks, maybe more. This city's not exactly kind to old. If I lose the medallion, Jade, I'm done for." Jade clenched her free hand, nails biting into her palm. She called with a surge of emotion. The nights Uncle Tom had worked double shifts so that she'd have clothed for school or a slice of birthday cake, he'd always said, "I'll take care of you, kiddo, somehow, some way." Now it was her turn to support him. "Uncle Tom," she began slowly, "maybe I can fill in for you." He let out a dry, humorless chuckle. "Honey, you're 19, and female at that. The guys at the taxi depot won't make it easy for you." "I know," she said, swallowing her fear, "but I have a regular driver's license. If I can get a temporary hack license or at least some form of permission, I might be able to drive your taxi while you recover." They said, "You have a couple weeks before they make a final decision." "Right?" "They did," he conceded, voice wavering. "But this is a cutthroat industry. They might say a couple weeks, but they can pull my medallion any day if someone else bribes them for it." Jade took a steadying breath, her mind already spinning through possibilities. She had no illusions about the punishing hours or the dangers of driving a cab. But compared to letting her uncle lose his one livelihood, this was the only option. "We'll make them stick to that timetable," she said firmly. "I'll call the taxi company first thing in the morning. Just hang in there." After she hung up, Jade paced the tiny apartment, her heart hammering. She couldn't shake her own anxiety about money, about her future. But she had to do this for Uncle Tom, for the promise she'd silently made to repay him for his kindness. The next morning, Jade got up at dawn and put on her cleanest t-shirt and jeans. She caught a city bus across town to the Westbridge Taxi Company's depot, located in a dingy lot, jam-packed with yellow cabs. The office was a converted trailer, battered from years of neglect. A man wearing a stained vest leaned in the doorway, puffing on a cigarette. "You lost?" he asked, flicking ash onto the gravel. "I'm looking for—" "The manager name's Murphy, right?" Jade asked, nerves snapping inside her like live wires. He gave a lazy shrug and jerked his thumb toward the door inside. Jade found a cramped space, reeking of stale coffee. A burly man with salt and pepper hair sat behind a metal desk piled with paperwork. The nameplate read Walter Murphy, manager. "Yeah," he said, eyeing her wearily. Jade inhaled. "I'm Jade Carson, my Uncle Tom. Carson has been driving for you for nearly 30 years. Murphy frowned. "I know Tom, shame about his back here, he can't drive. That's why I'm here. I want to fill in for him until he recovers." His eyebrows shot up. You're just a kid." She set her shoulders. "I'm 19 and legally allowed to drive. I know I need a hack license, but the city ordinance allows a temporary taxi driving permit under extenuating circumstances. I looked it up." She offered a printed form from the municipal website. Murphy scanned it, unimpressed. "I'm not sure how many female drivers you've seen around here, kid, but it's not exactly a friendly environment. I don't care," Jade said, hearing the trembling edge in her voice. "Uncle Tom can't lose his medallion. I'll pass whatever test or training you have." He leaned back, rolling a toothpick between his teeth. He has about 2 weeks left of guaranteed hold on that medallion. if you can get the city to issue you the license in that time. I won't stop you, but if you slip up, I'll revoke your privileges on the spot." Understood. Relief fluttered her. Understood. That night, Jade called Uncle Tom to deliver the news. He sounded both relieved and scared. "Just be careful out there, honey," he murmured. "It's a tough world behind that wheel." Little did Jade know, stepping behind the wheel of that taxi would steer her life onto an entirely different road, one that led straight into the path of a stranger, capable of unraveling her struggles and reshaping her dreams. Jade spent the next several days navigating a whirlwind of paperwork, municipal regulations, and crash course taxi training. She had to pass a defensive driving test, memorize local ordinances, and demonstrate that she could handle the stress of urban traffic. It felt like she was cramming for final exams, except failure here could cost her uncle everything. Finally, just in time, she was issued as a provisional hack license, valid for 30 days. That same afternoon, she reported to the taxi depot with the slip in hand, ignoring the sidelong glances from a few middle-aged drivers. Most were men who looked at her with skepticism or outright curiosity. "You Tom's niece?" one of them asked. "He's a good guy, but you got any idea what you're getting into?" Jade forced a polite smile. "I'm about to find out." Murphy tossed her a set of keys to a battered yellow cab that had definitely seen better days. The driver's seat felt stiff under her. She fiddled with the meter, the radio, and the flimsy plastic partition behind her, a faint odor of stale French fries. Ling Ed and the floor mat was riddled with cigarette burns. "Glamorous," she muttered to herself, trying to quell her nerves. Her first day on the job involved hours of slow cruising, picking up random fares, learning which neighborhoods yielded the best tips and which ones to avoid after dark. She discovered that rush hour traffic was maddening, that drunk passengers could be either hilarious or terrifying, and that the hum of the city never truly stopped. Despite the stress, Jade felt a strange surge of pride each time she completed a fare, without incident. She was driving for a living. Never mind that it was Uncle Tom living, this is temporary, she told herself, just until he's back on his feet. But Uncle Tom's back pain only worsened, requiring more doctor visits and potential surgery. Jade found herself working longer hours, scrimping and saving to cover both her living expenses and a chunk of his mounting bills. She often ended her shifts, exhausted, her eyes burning from constant vigilance one afternoon. She just finished a grueling run when her phone buzzed with a text from Uncle Tom. "Doc says surgery is mandatory. No driving for months. I'm so sorry, Jade." Her heart clenched. Months. She sank into the driver's seat, the city's noise blurring around her. If Uncle Tom was out for months, how long could she keep this up? Suddenly, her dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio car. 17, we got a pickup request at the Westbridge Private Airport, priority passenger. You available?" Jay considered ignoring it. She was exhausted, sweaty, and hungry, yet priority fares paid well, and every dollar counted. She grabbed the radio dispatch. "This is car 17. I'm on it." When she arrived at the private terminal, surrounded by sleek black limousines and tinted SUVs. Jade's battered cab looked downright scruffy. She brushed her dark hair into a loose ponytail, trying to appear somewhat professional. Her passenger emerged from the terminal, a tall man in a crisp navy suit, carrying a leather briefcase. He exuded an aura of wealth and confidence. His short, neatly styled hair complemented sharp cheekbones and intense dark eyes. A man used to giving orders and having them followed, he strolled up to her driver's side window. "Are you Jade Carson?" His voice was measured, as if he was already scrutinizing her. She swallowed. "That's me. I'm Christopher Blake," he said, flipping open his phone. "My assistant booked this taxi under my name. I need to get downtown for a series of meetings." She noticed the slightest flicker of surprise on his face as he appraised her youth and the taxi rundown condition. But he offered a curt nod, slipping into the back seat with practiced, poised. Jade pulled out of the terminal, merging onto the highway leading into the city center. She threw a quick glance in the rearview mirror. Christopher had already busied himself with phone calls, speaking in calm, authoritative tones about mergers, venture capital, and board approvals. She had no clue who he was, but from the way he talked, it sounded like he was orchestrating million-dollar deals between sips of water. Finally, he ended one call and met her gaze in the mirror. "How long have you driven a taxi?" She hesitated just a little while. He arched an eyebrow. "I see you're surprisingly calm for a newbie." Jade tried not to laugh at the idea of being calm. She was anything but. "I guess I have a lot riding on this," she said softly. He didn't pry, instead, returning to his father. Traffic thickened as they neared downtown, and Jade skillfully wove between lanes, mindful of the meter ticking away by the time they arrived at a gleaming glass tower. Christopher had ended his final call. He handed her several crisp bills through the partition more than the meter readout. Jade's eyes widened at the generous tip. "Thank you," she said, voice catching. Christopher gave a polite nod. "Can you wait here for about an hour? I have a follow-up meeting if you're free. I'd like to use you for the remain of the day." She blinked, startled. Sure, I can do that." And just like that, she spent the afternoon driving Christopher to 3 different offices and 1 upscale restaurant. He took calls, hopped out for quick visits, then returned without missing a beat. She kept the engine running, glancing at him in the mirror when he wasn't on the phone, wondering who this man was and why he carried himself like he owned half the city. When the final stop came, a boutique hotel in the city's financial district. Christopher opened the door, but lingered. "Thank you, Jade. You're resourceful and punctual. I appreciate that." He handed her his business card in case you ever decide taxi driving isn't enough. Jade didn't know what to say. She tucked the card into her pocket, watching as he strode into the grand lobby. The entire day felt surreal, as though she'd gotten a glimpse of a different reality, one where money didn't strangle you at every turn. She checked the tip he'd left enough to pay for Uncle Tom's upcoming MRI test relief course through her. Little did she know this was only the first of many strange and fortuitous encounters with the man who would come to embody the second chance she so desperately needed over the next few weeks. Jade fell into a grueling routine, waking at sunrise to help Uncle Tom with errands, hitting the road by noon for taxi shifts, and driving late into the night to pick up as many fares as possible. The city's bright lights often blurred into a continuous stream of motion, and Jade's only respite came in the form of quick naps in the driver's seat. Uncle Tom's back issues grew increasingly dire. A specialist confirmed that without spinal surgery, he risked permanent disability. Jade's small earnings barely covered her own rent, let alone the looming medical bills. Each time the phone rang with a new invoice, she felt her heart pound with dread. One rainy evening, her dispatcher called in a panic. "Car 17, we need you at the train station. East platform hype paying fare." Last minute quest, Jade was dog-tired, but she couldn't afford to refuse. She drove through sheets of rain to the station's curb. A single passenger waited under the neon lights, a tall figure holding a sleek umbrella. She flipped on her hazard, stepped out to help with any luggage, when she recognized him through the downpour. Christopher Blake again, eyes narrowed against the driving rain. He gave a curt nod of gratitude as she opened the back door. "I didn't expect you," he said, sliding onto the leather seat. Jade offered a faint smile. "I guess I'm the only one crazy enough to drive in this storm." He chuckled, folding his umbrella. "I have a flight leaving from Westbridge International in 2 hours. Traffic's brutal, think we'll make it." Jade glanced at the deluge. "Do our best for nearly an hour." She navigated flooded streets, detouring around accidents and road closures. All the while, Christopher tapped out emails on his phone, occasionally casting an appraising look through the windshield. Jade gripped the wheel, white-knuckled adrenaline fueling each careful turn. "We might just make it," she muttered, spotting the airport exit sign. Then a flash of lightning illuminated a massive truck overturned ahead, blocking 2 lanes. Cars in front screeched to a stop. Water sloshing over their tires, Jade's heart hammered. She had seconds to react before she slammed into the line of cars. She pressed the brakes and swerved onto the shoulder. The taxi skidded, hydroplaning across a slick patch of oil. She let out a choked gasp, fighting the wheel as they slid within inches of a guardrail. Finally, the tires caught traction. The taxi lurched to a halt with a squeal. Jade's chest rose and fell, in rapid bursts, pulse pounding in her ears. Christopher exhaled slowly in the back seat, impressive reflexes. He said, voice calm despite the harrowing near. Miss Jade swallowed hard. "I'm sorry that was close." Don't apologize. You saved us from a nasty collision. Shaken Jade, watch. As emergency responders arrived to clear the overturned truck. By the time the road reopened, Christopher had missed his flight. He quietly rebooked another on his phone, then asked her to take him to a nearby hotel when they finally reached the hotel. Jade leaned her forehead against the steering wheel, relief and exhaustion mingling in the aftermath of adrenaline. "You okay?" Christopher asked, no trace of impatience in his tone. She forced a laugh. "I think I just aged 5 years." He reached through the partition and set a business card with a different logo on the dashboard. "Thank you, Jade, seriously. If you need a real job, one that doesn't involve risking your life on wet roads, call me." She stared at the card. This one wasn't just his name, it read, Blake Innovations, Christopher Blake, CEO. Her chest tightened. A CEO? Well, that explains the fancy suit and huge tips, too weary to think straight. She only managed a polite nod once. He disappeared into the hotel. She slid the card into the glove compartment, uncertain if she'd ever be bold enough to use it. Jade's financial woes compounded. Uncle Tom's surgery was scheduled. His insurance covered only part of the procedure she owed her landlord 2 months back. Rent bill collectors called daily. She spent every waking hour behind the wheel, chasing fares, until her eyes burned from exhaustion. One crisp afternoon, she had just dropped off a passenger in a posh commercial district when her phone buzzed with the landlord's ultimatum: pay within 7 days, or eviction proceedings begin heart-hammering. Jade tried to collect herself. She still had half a day shift ahead, but how could she concentrate on fares when she was on the brink of homelessness? Leaning against the steering wheel, she wrestled with a wave of despair. Then, as if summoned by fate, the dispatcher's voice rang out. "Car 17, we have a specific request for Jade Carson. A Mr. Blake wants a pickup at Hamilton Towers." Jade's breath caught Christopher again. She remembered his second business card. Her pride balked at the idea of revealing her dire circumstances to him, but her survival instinct told her not to pass up a high-paying fare. She accepted the call, driving to the upscale Hamilton Towers, a glass edifice that practically screamed affluence. Sure enough, Christopher waited in the lobby, tapping on his phone as she parked. He stepped out, appearing slightly harried. He settled in the back seat, discarding his usual suit jacket beside him. "Thanks for coming on short notice. My driver out of town, and you're the only person I trust to navigate midday traffic without losing time." Jade forced a smile. Happy to help, they pulled away from the curb, merging with the sea of cars. Christopher rattled off 3 meeting locations, all scattered across the city. He paused, catching her exhausted expression in the rearview mirror. "You don't look well, Jade. Everything okay?" She hesitated, not wanting to burden him, but a painful pang of desperation twisted her gut. "I'm just dealing with some family stuff and money problems." She admitted. He studied her carefully. "Is there anything I can do?" She forced a small laugh. "I don't think so, unless you can magically pay rent for me and get my uncle's back surgery covered." A hush filled the taxi. She regretted her flippant remark, but her frustration bubbled close to the surface. "Let me know if you change your mind," he said gently. Then he resumed tapping on his phone, giving her the space to breathe for the rest of the drive. Jade fought off the knot in her throat. This was the second time Christopher had hinted at helping her. Could it really be that easy? Wealthy CEOs didn't just hand out money, did they? After a whirlwind of pickups and drop-offs, she parked outside an elegant restaurant. Christopher beckoned her to join him for lunch on him. Initially, she refused, but her stomach growled audibly. He insisted. Inside, crystal chandeliers sparkled over white linen tables. Jade felt painfully out of place, but Christopher made her feel more comfortable by discussing neutral topics: her driving challenges, the best coffee spots in town, random city gossip. Midway through the meal, he sat down his fork. "Jade, I want you to consider something I've been watching: how you handle pressure, your resourcefulness, your grit. I could use someone like you on my team officially." She blinked. "You mean a job at Blake Innovations?" He nodded. "An entry-level position, perhaps in logistics or operations. You'd earn more than what you make driving a taxi, and you'd have a real path to career growth. I can't promise it'll solve all your problems immediately, but it could be a big step up emotions. warred within her hope. Fear, skepticism. I'm not sure I have the qualifications. I value potential. Christopher said, not just resumes. Think it over. If you say yes, I'll help you sort out the taxi medallion issue for your uncle. We can speak with the company and see if they can preserve it under medical leave, so he doesn't lose everything. Jade felt tears prick her eyes right there in the fancy restaurant she had been drowning, and here was a lifeline. But she also knew how the world could be. Sometimes a lifeline came with strings attached. Why, she asked, voice trembling. Why are you offering this? His gaze was level. I used to be like you, struggling, hungry for a break. Someone saw my ambition and took a chance on me. I'm returning the favor. Jade inhaled, her heart pounding. She glanced at her phone to see a missed call from Uncle Tom's doctor. Could I really walk away from the taxi right now? Could I handle a new job and still pay for Uncle Tom's care? She bit her lip. I need time to think. Christopher nodded without pressing. Of course my door is open, just don't wait too long. Opportunities have a way of slipping past when we hesitate. She managed to nod, her thoughts swirling. Is he offering me a real job or pity? The day progressed with more stops, more silent tension. Finally, near dusk, they approached the final location, a luxurious penthouse. Building overlooking the city skyline, Christopher asked Jade to park in an underground garage. As she did, he placed a folder on the passenger seat. Inside were documents describing a logistics internship at Blake Innovations, requirements, benefits, training schedules, a modest but stable salary. Jade's hands shook. That's for you, Christopher said softly. No obligation. If you want it, it's yours. If not, I understand. Tears prickled Jade's eyes, but I don't have a degree or time to go to classes. And what about Uncle Tom's taxi medallion if I don't drive? He loses it. He exhaled. I've done some research. There's a clause allowing a medallion holder to keep it under extended medical leave, provided they apply before the initial provisional period ends. I can help push that paperwork through. She stared at him, disbelief washing over her. Why, she whispered, you barely know me. Christopher gave a gentle shrug. Someone once saw potential in me when I was at rock bottom. I'm paying it forward, and I like your determination. If you succeed, I gain a talented employee. If not, at least I tried it. Felt like stepping off a cliff, but Jade nodded shakily. Okay, she whispered, tears threatening to spill. I'll do it. Uncle Tomkey relief was palpable when Jade told him the plan. Focus on your new job, kiddo, he said, voice cracking with pride. If that man can save my medallion, I won't lose my livelihood, and you won't lose yourself in that taxi seat they processed. The medallion paperwork with the city, Christopher used his connections to expedite approvals. Murphy, the taxi manager, let Jade walk away with no hard feelings. He even wished her luck the next day. She returned the taxi keys for good feeling, an odd pang of nostalgia for the battered cab. Jade walked into Blake Innovations headquarters, an architectural marvel of steel and glass, clutching her new ID badge. She stepped into the elevator, nerves fluttering. She wore a simple blouse and skirt courtesy of a local thrift store, but she carried herself with a fresh sense of possibility. That morning, Christopher introduced her to a small team handling the logistics of internal projects. They welcomed her politely, though a few looked puzzled. Why was the CEO personally guiding this newcomer over the following weeks? Jade immersed herself in training sessions on project management software, corporate etiquette, and analytics. She took notes viciously, applying the same grit she'd used on the city streets between tasks. She visited Uncle Tom, who was recovering post-surgery, ensuring bills were paid on time with her new salary. Christopher's support went beyond an executive interest in her progress. Occasionally, he stopped by her cubicle to chat, asking about her day, her uncle's health, her ambitions. He'd sometimes invite her to observe certain meetings, explaining the nuances of negotiations. Jade soaked it up, impressed by how calm and precise he was, even when billions of dollars were on the line. Bit by bit, their professional rapport took on a more personal warmth. They lingered over coffee breaks, talking not just about work, but about favored foods, childhood memories, the future they dreamed of. Jade found herself looking forward to these moments more than anything else in the day. One evening, after an especially stressful day of back-to-back project deadlines, Christopher offered to walk her out. A light rain fell outside the gleaming lobby. The city lights reflected in puddles on the pavement. "Have dinner with me," he said as they paused beneath a wide awning. She blinked, heat rising in her cheeks. Dinner like a business dinner. His eyes flickered with amusement. Not exactly a dinner for two. "If you're interested," Jade felt a twist of excitement mingle with nerves. "I would love that they ended up at a cozy Italian bistro. Its warm glow a stark contrast to the skyscrapers outside over pasta and shared laughter they opened up." Christopher confessed how he'd once been broke, nearly losing his first startup before a mentor stepped in with funding. Jade admitted how terrified she'd been behind the taxi wheel, living paycheck to paycheck by the time dessert arrived. Something unspoken, yet undeniable, had shifted between them. Jade felt more alive than she had in years, maybe ever. The weeks that followed brought more late-night conversations. Sometimes they strolled through downtown after the offices emptied, talking about technology, city politics, or random childhood anecdotes. Eventually, Christopher asked her to accompany him to a charity gala. She borrowed a simple black dress from a coworker, hair pinned up. Heart-throbbing with excitement, that night they danced to a gentle waltz, under glittering chandeliers surrounded by the city's elite. Christopher's hand settled lightly on her waist, his gaze locked on hers. No words were spoken yet. Everything was said. When the music ended, they gravitated to a quiet corner, breathless with the revelation that this was no mere office romance in the days that followed Jade's. Presence at Blake Innovations evolved. She was promoted to a junior coordinator role, tackling projects head-on. Coworkers gossiped about her closeness to the CEO, but she proved her capabilities, earning respect on her own. Merritt Christopher, for his part, navigated the delicate balance of personal and professional boundaries, with unwavering support for her growth. Uncle Tom recovered enough to walk without a cane. The city granted him an extended medical hold on his medallion, which he could reclaim. When fully able, one evening, Jade brought Christopher to Uncle Tom's modest apartment for dinner, bridging the two worlds that had shaped her over a humble meal of homemade stew. Uncle Tom took Christopher's hand and said, "Thank you, son, for looking out for my girl." Christopher's reply was simple: "She's changed my life as much as I've changed hers." About a year later, Jade's transformation was impossible to deny. She had blossomed into a confident professional, someone who held her own in meetings with senior executives. By then, she and Christopher were openly in a relationship, though she still remembered the days of driving that creaking yellow taxi, uncertain if she'd even have a place to sleep the next month, on a cool autumn evening in a sun-dappled garden overlooking the Westbridge River. Friends and family gathered for a small, intimate ceremony. Jade wore a flowing ivory gown with delicate lace at the sleeves. Christopher stood at the altar, a gentle smile lighting his face. Uncle Tom, upright and proud, gave Jade's arm a reassuring squeeze before handing her over as they exchanged vows. Jade felt tears spill down her cheeks. She thought back to the day she first stepped into that taxi for Uncle Tom, how desperation had led to the greatest gift of her life. She felt Christopher's ring slide onto her finger, a promise of partnership, love, and faith in each other's potential. When they turned to face the guests, the applause was full of warmth. Uncle Tom's cheers rose above the others, tears glistening in his eyes. Jade and Christopher made their way down the aisle hand in hand, ready to continue writing the next chapter of their lives together. A small reception followed, the gentle hum of conversation blending with soft music. Christopher proposed a toast, recalling that harrowing drive in the rain, how Jade's composure behind the wheel had sparked more than just admiration. It sparked a desire to know the courageous woman who refused to let life break her. Jade, overwhelmed by gratitude, lifted her glass and thanked everyone who had believed in them: Uncle Tom, who taught her to fight for family, the colleagues who gave her a chance to succeed, and the unexpected generosity of a CEO who saw more in her than she saw in herself in that moment. Jade realized that the improbable journey from terrified taxi stand into a beloved partner, from scrappy underdog to integral team member, wasn't just a twist of fate. It was a testament to resilience, an enduring reminder that sometimes the greatest detours in life lead us straight to where we belong on a sunny afternoon. She picked Uncle Tom up from his last physical therapy session, driving Christopher's sleek company car. Ironically, Uncle Tom hobbled out on a cane, still sore, but grinning ear to ear once he was settled in the passenger seat. Jade asked, "So how does it feel to be free of that wheelchair?" Uncle Tom let out a contented sigh. "Feels like I've been given a second chance. Same as you, kiddo." He patted the seat's armrest. "Though I might stick to letting you drive for a while." Jade laughed, navigating away from the rehab center. The radio played softly, the city streets alive with possibility. A wave of gratitude washed over her for Christopher, for this new path, for the fact she could finally take care of the man who had sacrificed so much for her. Because when she'd started that taxi route, it was out of desperation and love. She never dreamed she'd stumble into a CEO who'd see potential in a girl with no formal education, no fancy degree, and no safety net. Yet life has a way of surprising those who refuse to give up. As Uncle Tom dozed in the seat beside her, Jade vowed never to forget where she came from, or the moment she'd nearly crashed in a rainstorm with Christopher in the back seat. That near catastrophe had, in a strange twist, guided her onto a road of new beginnings. And that's the power of resilience and a little luck, two forces that turned a despairing taxi driver into a budding professional, forging not just a career, but a bond with someone who believed in her when she needed it most. Thank you for joining us on Jade's remarkable journey, filled with hope, persistence, and a bit of serendipity. If you were inspired by this tale of grit and second chances, please consider subscribing to our channel.